The tariffs are coming. Welcome to Jay's Corner. It is March 30th, Sunday, 10 a.m. Eastern Time. My name's Jae Oh. I'm the author of Maximize Your Medicare. You can buy it anywhere. It is also sitting in most of the largest library locations throughout the United States. And, the book is very well received. Even Cindy and Farah like it. And it just goes to show you that, we can say that AI is not going to rule the world, but the reality is that people do need to understand its power. Unbelievable. Literally, it took one sentence. Okay, so here's today. Uh, First, Jay's Corner. This is the Substack. This is the free newsletter. Please go to subscribe. There, the link is in the video everywhere. jo.substack.com. We're going to discuss a number of the topics there, especially over the latest week here. We're going to get into that in a few moments. jo.substack.com. There is a paid version as well. There are going to be extra material. You can see, for example, the complete seminar on Medicare called Medicare ABCs, complete rundown on every part, Medicare Advantage, Medigap, for example. And there's also subscriber only information, videos, as well as commentary that doesn't exist in public. Okay. Tuesday is Tariff Tuesday. I can't remember the exact name that the president used for it. And the headlines here are going to come fast and furious. The world has sat there, not very enthusiastic about it, but it's here and it is coming. It does make sense that the president does not back down. It does make sense because you cannot just simply just threaten this stuff without actually pulling the trigger, because you will lose credibility immediately if you just huff and puff and don't blow the house down. So I don't, personal opinion corner my channel, right? So that I don't think that we're going to have a backing down that quickly. No, I just don't. Some headline, right, just yesterday, which is the president could care less if auto prices rise because of tariffs. Now, this comes at a particularly worrisome time because you can see that the consumer is stretched. For example, you can see here that this is a chart of loans that are made under the FHA. So there's a certain set of loans for people who need to qualify for homes that didn't or wouldn't normally have been able to except without FHA assistance. Those delinquencies are higher than at any point during the housing crisis. Now, this is actually notably worse today than it was then, right? Which is that at this time, these times over here, employment was much higher. Unemployment was much higher. The economic conditions of the United States, like the main statistics, were much worse at this time. Now we have very low unemployment overall. We have very low unemployment. And here. So now what you have, and it's just an illustration, I could have chosen one of lots, right? Many different locations where I could have pointed something like this out, and just the singular summary one I used today, which is we've got people stretched and at the lower income classes. We've got this. And the thing is that for me, this is going to be our first point, is this is not the biggest thing. Tariffs are here And tariffs will create worry. But the real worry is here. And that's Medicaid, which is that Medicaid is the real problem here. Last week, I talked about the fact that in order to keep the government up and going, let's just change this over here. In order to keep the government up and going, that 800 billion has to come, I think it's 880 billion has to come out of the Department of Energy, and Department of Energy oversees, right? DHS, which is Department of Health and Human, DHHS, Department of Health and Human Services, which includes Medicaid. And if you go to the pundits, for example, other groups of researchers, etc., this is Commonwealth Fund. It is one of the two credible ones that I quote frequently: Commonwealth Fund, Kaiser Family Foundation, Kaiser Health News, same group. These are the two that you want to get actual facts, you get them. And here gives you an idea, and I highlighted the key findings here. Right? Which is that combined losses from proposed Medicaid and SNAP would reach 1.1 trillion over a decade, including 95 billion of loss of federal funding in 2026 alone. And giving you state domestic products would be 1.113 billion lower. State and governments lose 8.8 billion in revenues, right? Tax receipts. And after would lead to another $286,000, 6,000 jobs lost in 2026. This isn't including Doge, right? I've talked over the last weeks here about the fact that about Medicaid and what people should do. And I highly suggest this to people, which is that because the reality is 2/3 of Americans know someone directly affected by Medicaid. Directly. Today. That I don't really care what politics and philosophy and different things like that is. People to the channel know this. I'm here to try to present, facts and things that you should consider, and then things that you should try to help somebody else. Please try to help somebody else. I'm trying to help people with this information first. That is I'm a commercial person, but that is secondary here, which is when I'm talking about Medicaid, what I'm talking is about the 80 million people who are Medicaid beneficiaries. 80 million out of a country of 350 million? That Medicaid is complicated as it is even when functioning smoothly. We've come out of a pandemic. People have been ejected. People are still on Medicaid that actually probably shouldn't be. And that's going to catch the ire of Doge. I don't think there's any question about that. The main thing here is that for people, I try to tell people is you need to verify your status. You need to tell your friend. You need to tell your neighbor. You need to tell your ex-coworker. Verify your Medicaid status, because all of the complications that you're seeing on TikTok and on social and getting the headlines or over meetings with your friends at the bar, they're all telling you the same thing. They're telling you that there's some hiccup as a result of all of these different attachment points that have to happen in government and red tape. I made a YouTube short about Social Security Administration and Medicare. All true. Right? It was complicated before the administration. Very complicated. And timing, very subtle. Very subtle. So subtle, in fact, crazy people write books about it. It's that sensitive. My point here is for if someone you know, which is 2/3 of you, 2/3 of the population of the United States know somebody on Medicaid, verify your status. People are being dropped off, right? I didn't do it. What do we know? We know that states are doing this, right? We know that this happens at the state level. This does not happen at the federal level. The states administer Medicaid eligibility. The state does. March 31st, which is literally tomorrow, right? For other people talking about governmental red tape, is an important day for certain others. I made other shorts talking about veterans and FEHB. And FEHB is the Federal Employee Health Benefits System. Right now, March 31st is tomorrow. I've been saying this for a month, more than a month. That the worry here is if you require healthcare services and have relied on the VA, for example, that layoffs at VA, delays, etc., if there are hiccups, and I'm not saying who's to blame, it's not your doctor, etc., etc., whatever the hiccup is, that some people may want to have health situation, a private one, where Medicare may have been best all along. And some people may say, I'm very uncomfortable. Well, what I'm saying is the day to enroll for Medicare and be effective for April 1st ends tomorrow. Tomorrow, you need to press send. If you need assistance, you've got the contact details in the text below. I can get you there. You need a date and timestamp on your application to the federal government because it's not going to turn on overnight, right? It's going to take some time. Everything that the government does. What we need is you need a fax to say, here's the date, here's the time that I sent in this application. From that point, federal regulations will protect you. And maybe it's going to create a delay, but ultimately, the government will follow those instructions because those are federal regulations. Medicare on and off switch is written down. And there's appeals processes as well. And the best way to answer all of that in advance is have a date and time stamp. I've been saying this for a month. I say this every year during Q1, right? It just increased in its visibility, if you will. And the reason for that is that we've got a deluge of headlines every day coming fast and furious about Doge and its effect on different walks of American life. Medicare Advantage people, as the last point before I keep going into it here, is that Medicare Advantage people, if you are a member of a Medicare Advantage plan today, you have to be an active member today, then tomorrow's the day. That's the deadline. You may have had reasons to switch. You can do it in a day, is the reality. You can. There's an exception here, and to give you an idea, there is an SEP which is for disaster. So if you are living in a location where affected by a disaster as stated by FEMA, if FEMA has declared a disaster in your location, you have an extension here. And it used to, literally, I was not supposed to be able to help you starting April 1, but now the reality is that brokers, agents, I am a licensed person, can assist. So you got an extra window here that is not well known, which is if the federal rule is March 31st, the fact is if you live in a location that has been affected by a FEMA disaster, then you will have an extension on this ability to change your Medicare Advantage plan. Fast and furious already. So Medicaid then will take the headlines, and like I said, the FEHB sitting here as, and why is my phone buzzing to this degree? Oh, I see. Okay. This past week, we're going to go to this now here because this is the where I want to go as far as talking about healthcare system and your understanding of healthcare cost as a whole. I'm going to take a few minutes here just to address this because the reason I start, first of all, with healthcare cost planning is because this affects the amount of usable cash that you have after you're done with your job, you're taking money out of a retirement or savings and investments plans that you've been cultivating over time. We will get to markets and savings investment plans in the second segment, as usual, our normal order. Normal, whatever normal is in this world. That the ACA is 15 years old. And this past week, I was like livid. To call me livid would have been a downgrade. Anything that says your smock is spoiled here cannot be me being complimentary. And I then swerved to name the person. End Medicare Advantage, bring back traditional Medicare, yada yada. Okay, and bring back traditional Medicare. Now, this was just a secondary criticism of which ACA was a bigger part. And I'm going to talk about the ACA first. So first of all, this is like wrong-minded. And what happened is, please go and to Jay's corner here. It's too long. But basically, this whole thing here is like full of sanctimony and inaccuracy. And I'm just going to put it to you that in words that everyone can understand. Right? If something's wrong with your auto insurance rate, you think you're getting picked off. Do you ever go to your mechanic, your auto dealer, in order to fix your auto insurance? You don't. You don't. Right? If you do, you're not going to be satisfied. You don't. You shouldn't. Somehow, however, how is it that we're going to doctors to fix health insurance? Health insurance is financial contract. Health insurance is not the same thing as health care. This person here, expert at health care. I don't know this person. I've never met this person. He has a last name that tells you that he's Korean, right? And he's a doctor. I've waited for this, to be candid with you. Why? Because when I blast someone here, I don't want to be accused of some like bias. I don't want to be accused of some bias. I'm going to be, right, very clear here. This is wrong-minded. This is wrong. It is wrong at so many levels here. It is stunning. It is insulting. It's insulting to his colleagues with his degree. And the reason I waited for a person that, generically last name is similar to mine, male, medical doctor, is, oh yeah, by the way, that is exactly the same demographic as my father, my late father, medical doctor. So I don't want to hear stuff that says you're a hater just for hateration's sake. That is not it. I'm a hater because of the intentional distortion here. Intentional distortion. There are two types of distortions that on financial topics. And that's the reason that I have this channel. That's why I've called it Solving Money's Naming Problem. There are two types. Number one, you're unqualified. You don't know any better. You remember Seinfeld? Right? You don't know if it's a lie. If you think it's true, it's not a lie. Or other words is, yeah, we thought the distance was X, but oh yeah, we didn't know that the earth wasn't flat. And the reality is that group of people, that group of people, you actually get a pass from me. You get a pass. You shouldn't be like, out there on some behind some pulpit, but you actually, I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt. You just don't know any better, right? You've got some fundamental assumption wrong from the beginning, and then you start going on. That's group one. And that's really me trying to be as empathetic as and giving someone the benefit of. This is the large majority of the audience you hear, right? You bring up some counterpoint that didn't take into account some basic principle that you've overlooked or didn't know or had been glossed over or for whatever reason hadn't been shown to you, and that would be the signal, not, and you've been distracted by the noise. But since you didn't know what the signal was, it's easy to be distracted by the noise. And if you didn't know from the jump, then it's easy to be distracted. That person, you kind of get a pass from me. I'll give you the pass. All you have to do, ask me tons of questions. We'll get you to the signal. No problem. Really. This guy. This guy doesn't get that answer. He doesn't get this excuse here. I'm sure this person passed probability. I'm sure of it. You don't get an MD degree without passing statistics. You don't. I don't have to explain standard deviation to you. I don't have to explain, causation and causal and correlation to you, the difference, none of it. The academics here, right, are not complicated to a person with this degree, these degrees, this certification. If something's wrong with my leg, I have no problem. If this becomes the doctor I'm assigned to, I'll have zero problem. I'm going to tell you right now. I don't know this person. For a person, however, to dress himself in a smock because of that, and then he is intentionally manipulating this and trying to then convince others. And now that goes to show you how far bad, how down bad we are in the conversation about health insurance and fixing healthcare costs in this country. Again, insurance prices are caused by the price of the underlying thing, whatever it is. And I just wrote this as the very something that everybody can understand. The price of orange juice is determined by the price of raw oranges. I don't think that this is controversial, right? Write me an email if it is, right? I know nothing about orange juice farming. I'm not an orange grove, owner. But the price of the product of orange juice is determined by the price of raw orange, not the other way around. This stuff here, right? And all of these other, it's unbelievable. If you go down this thread here and these posts and the debates here centered around here, right? And here it is right here. And so what ends up happening is people end up piling on the wrong topic. And here it is. We didn't go anywhere here. pre-Obamacare, I could afford a policy for myself and son, $250 with a $500 but now I pay $640. Employer pays $640 and deductible $6,000. Do you know why that is? So I wanted to. I know what it is. Why? Affordable Care Act can't refuse anyone as a result of pre-existing condition nationwide. The end. What does that mean? Mr. Sick-a-Lot gets the same price as Miss Perfect. That's it. That's the signal. Right? We've got health going to the cost of getting a surgery, the cost of an x-ray. That's fine. And there can be variance around that. That's totally fine. Is it not transparent? Is it too convoluted? Yes, no question. That's the focus here of these people. Fine. I'm going to give them that. What I'm also saying is that's so far down the line of importance about trying to think about what the price is here of the insurance is that the insurance, and I asked ChatGPT here, and I just said, okay, what's the single largest reason? And AI actually answered correctly. This is what I expected. When you take out people's bias and sanctimonious sanctimonial attitude, what do you get? The root driver is underlying medical cost. This person here, right? To become medical doctor at this age, $500,000. True. Other countries, a fraction of that. And oh, by the way, the citizens pay a healthcare tax, VAT, GST, whatever you want to call it. Lots of countries do. Canada. This is why the comparisons to other healthcare systems is like bogus. Guess I'm not being as impartial as you. I'm going to start throwing stones here because this one has my dander up because as a result of it, people then don't see straight. They don't think straight. They go, okay, well, I don't need this. I'm overpaying this someone and creating like some kind of atmosphere where you're going to just be able to fix it by doing X. No. And you can see here, this right here. This is like fancy language, but this is like I said. So now there's Mr. Sick-a-Lot and Miss Perfect. Same age, same location. Okay? Who's the one who's most likely to buy insurance? Mr. Sick-a-Lot is. Why? Can't be refused, can't be charged more than Miss Perfect. Both. If you didn't have this, what would you have? If you didn't have this single feature, which is no pre-existing conditions, gender neutral, sex neutral, right? Males no more than females, females no more than males, even though females use a lot more during childbearing years, by the way, right? Even though men live shorter, in early years, women use far more. The issue here, what would happen? Back to the story. Mr. Sick-a-Lot signs up every single day. Why? He's Mr. Sick-a-Lot. He's Jabba the Hutt. Right? To him, health insurance, that price is a deal. To Miss Perfect doesn't want to have a child 30 years old. No. Right? It's even more extreme the other way around. If it's Mr. Perfect and Miss Sick-a-Lot, health insurance is a bargain. Why? Because otherwise, she may not have been able to get health insurance at all. Like zero, no price. Do you see any of that? What is the issue here? Is you see in this whole thing? you will see zero comments about this fact alone. You're complaining about the twig on a branch on a tree in a forest. And because of this, what do you have? You have we listen using the smock, using your uniform, using your letters here that qualifies the weirdly the auto dealer as the health insurance markets expert. In the same way, we're using these letters here as if that qualifies them for something that is a derivative financial contract. Unbelievable. And the worst of it all is I know it, he knows it. So that is not to say that I'm not empathetic to the fact it costs $500,000 to become a medical doctor, right? My point here is you want to fix, you've got to rip it down from the struts. This person here, and he's not alone, by the way. He's not alone. I promise you that. Right. This is talking about this. That's all true, right? I'm going to presume this is true, right? But from here, this is the confusion down here. That's amongst them. That has nothing to do with the Affordable Care Act. The construction of the Affordable Care Act doesn't. The feature of the Affordable Care Act that creates the issue is the no pre-existing conditions clause. And oh yeah, by the way, no one wants to be held responsible for rolling that back. Nobody. Why? Because they know that they get immediately thrown into the bin as, people killer, this, that, the other, don't care about anyone, not a human, etc. Right? No one can be cast in that light. So no one's putting it over here. Yeah, I should go in here and just say, okay, fine. You want this lower premium? Sure. Sure. I can push down your premium. Yeah. Just refuse everyone who's sick and just accept only Miss Perfect and Mr. Perfect. I'll drop it in 2 seconds. Why? Because there's no utilization. Since there's no utilization, the cost will go down. There's no such thing as adverse selection, right? Because Mr. Sick-a-Lot, I've refused him. No problem. Fixed. Who's not fixed? Mr. Sick-a-Lot. And that single thing isn't up for debate anywhere here. Oh, of which, like I said, these groups wearing the gowns of sanctimony aren't saying a thing, not a peep. And yet leading you down the public who doesn't know, who gets distracted by the noise, as if what? That as if they're qualified to opine about something, and they may be qualified and they're not bringing up the topic, right? They pass the math, that part I'm sure. So the only explanation is they're group number 2, which is they're intentionally doing it. I see why I'm so ticked off. In the Substack, down over here, I asked Grok, which is X's AI tool, I said, this is a bunch of BS. Start explaining about all the logical inconsistencies, the degree of BS, how high my BS waders have to be. And out it came. In fact, here I shared in this latest edition of the Substack itself, I shared right up here, I shared the link. You can click, you can read the entire PDF response. It was like 10 pages long, right, when I printed it out into PDF. And this is, looks right, sounds right, educated person in that field. But if you fail to decouple, if you don't recognize this thing, and oh yeah, by the way, this is my existence. This is why my channel is so small on YouTube, all of it. Because this misunderstanding here extends to a lot of financial topics, a lot. And yet YouTube and social media, what they want you to do is they want you to get in a silo and stay in it. And so what ends up happening is to people that are involved in the healthcare delivery system, they do understand what I've said here now that I've pointed it out, right? If they decouple their personal bias as a result of the fact of being minus $500,000 in educational debt, right? If I told them that they were not part of a rural hospital that was bankrupt, right? And then just took that same person and said, okay, without the emotion involved there and the fact that you're personally affected, can you understand this? The answer will be yes. When I then try to explain it to them about life insurance to that same person, that they go, I don't understand life insurance. I don't believe that, right? That the understandings are related. They're not separate silos. Yet YouTube is guilty, right? The algo is going, this guy doesn't like YouTube. So my point is that the reason that I have the newsletter is because if we get into the practice of decoupling, understanding what's is and what's signal, what's noise, you get then used to the idea that, okay, here's this stuff I have to deal with. Here's how it fits my specific situation. And here's the price that I'll part with in order to deal with it. That's the process I use for every client on every single thing. But here we are. Yes, indeed, here we are. Markets update. Let's just go to it. So we're back to down, right? I left this short, so nobody follows me on TikTok. I've like 5 videos. If somebody says like post 3 times a day, what? I don't have three times.
I got to jump in here. We are accustomed to using all the economic data and saying, what does it mean for the Federal Reserve? I am spending way less time thinking about the Fed than I ever have in my entire career because this U.S. economy doesn't need 2-year rates lower. It needs 10-year and 30-year rates lower. And the Fed is not the one that's going to create major influence there. The corporate sector, the housing sector, those are really leveraged to the long end of the curve. So my focus going into work every day is what is that 10-year doing? When are we going to get relief for housing? And when are we going to start to see some alleviation in the burden of some of those higher levels of debt among consumers and households? That's not going to be what's happening with the Fed. It's going to be the market's interpretation of where growth is heading and what's happening in Washington. So we got to pivot the conversation a little bit away from the Fed, even though, of course, as an economist, it's my favorite thing to talk about.
And so now you've got it, right? Which is that you can understand why the second mantra, or one of the main parts of financial understanding when it comes to markets and your savings and investment strategy, stocks for show, bonds for dough. The economist there from RBC is talking about the same, because interest rates are, tell me, right? Please watch other videos. I can't even tell you, right? I've told you that of how many different topics. Literally, here's the channel, right? So many different topics. I get it. You'll get it. I have faith that you'll get it. That's why I keep making videos. That, how much does it, tell me who you are, tell me how much it costs. How much does it cost is determined by what? What she was talking about on the video. That's what she was talking about, right? We can agree. She was talking about, tell me about how much it costs. Interest rates. What else did she say? Okay.
I got a jumper. It needs 10-year and 30-year rates lower. And the Fed is not the one that's going to create major influence there. The corporate sector, the housing sector, those are really leveraged to the long end of the curve.
True. And this is the issue here, right? And that is exactly the reason that I brought up this, right? These things here have to do with the long end of the curve. And for newcomers to financial markets, long end of the curve are 10-year and beyond, let's just call it. 10-year US Treasury bonds, right? To the long bond. And it is why I've told other persons by far, and other persons have as well. I'm not the only. I'm not the only. Of course not. Economists, economics officials, Fed people, etc., they will tell you the single most important statistic is this number right here. That's it. Newcomers here, this is new. Followers here, this is not by a long shot. They're tired of it. This is number one. There is no number two. Or, yeah, this is like number 1 through number 5. Okay. Everything's levered off this number for the most part. Stocks versus bonds, US versus euro, you name it. It's how much does it cost in dollars? How much does it cost in dollars? We got a delay here today. It's because I've overloaded my computer with tabs. So we'll wait for it to load up. But you can see, and what you saw here, and what we saw is we have rates lower, and notably so over, the other day. It was here, right here, where I've got the bars there. This is Friday. I'm gonna explain it to you here. So, like I said, how much does it cost? And now you can see this is not new. None of this panel here is new, which is only TikTok that I included here. Everything else here is the same. And it's why I don't have 6 trillion videos over here. Is because a lot of the things that I've said here, like I kind of joked, said, we've already talked about this channel. Should call this broadcast. We already talked this, where I'm just referring back to other locations. That literally could take multiple hours. That'd be a marathon. But you can see here now you've got its ripple effects into everything. And it doesn't matter what age division, it includes your career path today, right? How aggressive you're 40 years old, you're thinking about, do I need to find a different higher paying job because I'm overqualified or underpaid for my first one? Well, maybe you're in a cozy job that may be fine, but if another job pays more and you have rising costs as a result of mortgage rates and a higher home, your cost of living is skyrocketed for reasons beyond your control, you have to now consider it. That makes complete rational sense. What I would tell people here, though, is the takeaway is here that markets are working. right? We are not here to tell you that I have a crystal ball. Not. That's for other channels that, purportedly have a million views. I don't know. I'm not sure if those are real. But anyway, we're not going to settle that today. But I'm here to tell you that markets are working, that I don't see panic. And that itself is a concern to some degree. That is true. Right? But when I say it's working, let's just go see. Let's see if I can find it. I think it's here. I don't think it's here. Nope. We've got some. You should go watch this for sure. She is one of the pioneers of target date funds. But if we go to Vimeo, and then yeah. So here is the video that's on Vimeo here, and I will create the link here for you. But in the chat or in the text below the video, how portfolios are really built here. And you can see here that I have talked about different topics.
Then okay, yeah, but
and the fact that you may not think that things are related, they become related. And later today, we will have a special subscribers only video along these lines because there's a particular situation where, and it's not to do with crypto, but you think they're not related. They become related. Why? Because they sit in portfolios. Anyway, back to the point here. Portfolios are working. That is true. And this video is old, right? Like I told you we've already talked about this channel. Right? This is the original time when GameStop and meme stocks. This is 3 years ago. Right? The academics, the principles, the knowledge about how these are constructed, how diversified portfolios are really constructed is not different. The inputs are different. The framework is the same. So when I'm making my comments along these lines, I'm making comments about, is this framework holding together well or not? I'm not making comments of whether or not Google is under or overpriced. Target price. No. What I'm reporting, though, to you is that the market seems to be working. And this is different than even 3 weeks ago, where people who watched a few weeks ago, I was much more unsettled than I am today. And the reason simply was because, like I said here, is what we saw and Friday was just an example of the greater set of multiple examples. That interest rates lowered despite higher inflation. So what happened on Friday? We got inflation expectations. Were historically high by people. Now, I've reported in the past and explained in the past that this equation is the one that exists when it comes to interest rates. That in the light blue there, I've got real interest rates, which is a reflection of the economy's productivity, plus actual inflation, plus expected inflation. This is the Taylor rule for you macro 101, macro 201 people. And if you're actually a macroeconomist, yes, I know I'm taking shortcuts. You'll forgive me. Right? My point here, though, is this. So let me just make this back to yellow, and I'm gonna highlight the correct point here. The new point here is that bond is a reminder here that bonds can have multiple functions. And bonds being inversely related to interest rates, right? So interest rates lower, bonds price higher, and vice versa, that you would have thought that it was odd, not to me, but and I'm in that TikTok. I did not actually show the prelude to the question, but one of the hosts said, "Hey, why are rates lower when the interest rates were a lot lower, even though expected inflation was much higher? Why was that?" And so the point is why the question was, and which that's why I pointed out this TikTok. Right.
So my focus going into work every day is what is that 10-year doing really leveraged to the long end of the curve? So my focus going into work every day is what is that 10-year doing? When are we going to get relief for housing? And when are we going to start to see some alleviation in the burden of some of those higher levels of debt among consumers and households? That's not going to be what's happening with the Fed. It's going to be the market's interpretation of where growth is heading and what's...
And this is my point. Markets right? The reason I chose this is because its subtlety and, its conciseness, right? Which is that the markets determine, okay? And growth prospects of the economy. So if we go to that, even in that not even the full sentence, she already addressed two things that I want to point out here. One, which is that now she's talking about the fact that what's being in question is the real interest rate. So now inflation expectation, yes, those are higher, but what does that mean? That told you that the market's view about the productivity of the economy has declined a lot. And so what you have here is this multiple functions, which is now, so bonds, does that make the equation, does that mean that the equation is wrong? No, it doesn't. What it simply means is that what the focus of the lead-up question was about this third element, ignoring the first element, that the market told you that that when people sold stocks because they bought the safety of bonds, the insurance function of bonds, and what the economists were saying, lower interest rates, so as a result that exceeds the expected inflation. Right, because now what you have is, so inflation expectation up, right? That must have meant that, but nevertheless, the market determined, that was the second clause that I liked about what she said, right? Which was that the market determined the rest. And what did the market do? The market said that, okay, I need to be out of stocks into bonds. Too risky. Not worth it. Now you can see the other links to all the other segments here on my videos, right? Equity risk premium. Not worth juice, not worth the squeeze. And even if in the very short term that is not the case, the longer this persists, what you will have has to be this, and these are evidence that this is working, because this is the framework by which that allocation process occurs. So as a result, this is why I'm saying that if I would give you a conclusion, I would give you the conclusion that markets are working. They're not broken, they're working. This is also, however, even despite it working, that doesn't mean the direction is favorable. I didn't say that. And you can see year to date, this is the US dollar bond market, that this was on Friday. You can see in the very short time frame. And you can see year to date a particularly unpleasant, oops, that's not correct, is it? That's not even close. This is not correct. And you can see that over longer time frames here this year, what you've seen is, yes, this has worked. Right? In other words, the same mechanism by which they're building these portfolios here is the same thing that is now consistent with all of what the data, the result has been. It used to be 2022, the issue was this was way down and this was way down. Now you had a real problem. You had no choice if you wanted to keep your money to pull up the stakes a lot more aggressively. Here, though, what you have is you've got the benefit of diversification working. That bonds are working here. So now I'm the last segment here. The last mention here is that is not just smooth sailing in and of itself. And I'm going to show you the bugaboo here. The bugaboo here is this here. So this is Bloomberg. And a point that I've made here on this channel, as well as on the newsletter. By the way, please like and subscribe. 1 hour, I've not asked people to like and subscribe to the channel. It's crazy. It's like, every YouTube coach on the planet is like, it's like you're hopeless. Anyway, let's pretend we have hope. I have hope for you, the audience. I'm not hope for the channel is a different thing. Maybe I should stop. You can see it here is we've lived under this idea of American exceptionalism. And I've told this to anyone who will listen. America is exceptional because its pathway for people is more unencumbered than in other countries. Okay. You're smart, you're enterprising, you've had everything go wrong for 25, 30 years, you can still thrive. You can. You can change direction. You can change your course. You can get there. You can. I'm going to close on that happy note in a few moments. The issue here is that interest rates are going, so you can see, while on one hand, I'm going to stick with this notion, right, which is that this has worked. This has worked, right, which is the bond market has provided a cushion here. Year to date, it worked. Even intraday, it worked. The question is this. Oops, we'll get to we're still bad at BRP. Is abroad, see all these red numbers here? These red numbers are telling you that other countries' interest rates are going the other direction. So now think to yourself, you're Helmut Schmidt, right, in Germany, your own euro. Why do I need to buy US bonds? I just buy German bonds. They're higher. So what ends up happening is people don't buy this. So now the question is that going to then push interest rates higher? And now we've got this is the crossfire now. The crossfire here is that when I go to first principles and my very first question is what does stuff cost? The same thing applies across bond markets. Right, to you again, same principles. We're just changing who it's affecting in different examples, but same principles, which is how much does it cost? Well, the issue now is that we've got this going on, right? Which is the US doing stable-ish, but not in other countries. That these interest rates here are notably higher. And down here, Japan, this is a stunning move here within the past 12 months. The reason that matters is that that changes, what can happen in currency world. And the US dollar has gotten pretty badly hurt here this year. Pretty bad. Let's take a look at the day, right? This is big. This is big. And so now you got this ripple effect here, leading to kind of this. What part this is playing? We have this debate which is still unsettled. I do suspect that a lot of, and you can see here that, the world sits here worried. But yet the big picture, my bottom line has been that overall it has worked. This has worked. Right? Markets are still functional. Which is also the source of some concern, right? Because the source of concern would be, this is we get when we call it functional. What happens if it becomes dysfunctional? Right? We don't have panic here. We don't. You think it looks panicked. It looked weird a couple of weeks ago. It looks completely like stable or normal here. It looks normal at lower levels, but it does not look like hugely erratic here. In other words, this looks intact within wider blue. Yes, that is true, right? We are, nothing has changed. Nothing has changed in the principles here on my newsletter. This lattice has been showing up on my newsletter umpteen times. We're still at the red arrow, and what I'm saying is this whole shape here doesn't look wildly contorted to me. It's flatter, maybe. Even that has calmed down. But the issue then, okay, well, this is what we got. Which means if this is what happens when it's orderly, what happens if it becomes disorderly? That we do not know. This is why I'm watching, right? Because over here, this can be the cause of disorder. This kind of thing can be the disorder. I don't like Elon Musk. I don't like Tesla. My Ford is going to not be built in Mexico. I'm going to move it to, yeah, I guess, but that is, if in short periods, it's fine. If it's long periods, fine. Don't get me wrong. By fine, I mean to a person living check to check, it's not fine. Don't get me wrong. I don't want to be misunderstood. But big picture here, this still, right? We've got orderly here. So my question is, okay, what happens if this makes it disorderly? Last point here. Yesterday, let's see if I can find it without revealing something. Where is she? There she is. This is the one. U.S. is an exceptional, and AI has, in a way, thrown a lifeline to me.
You can be anything you want now. I'm not even talking about your job, I'm talking about your life. Your whole identity. What did you want to be when you were a kid? Go do that now. You could probably do that now. If you're a creative person and you want to make a movie, go get on Sora, go get on Midjourney, go get on Runway. I was never formally trained as a software engineer to write code, and yet I am building apps. Go! Get off TikTok! Go live your freaking dream! And if you don't know where to start and you don't know how to even begin it, start talking to ChatGPT. Just be like, I used to want to be this when I was a kid, and now I do this, and I kind of want to do that now. What do I need to start doing every day to get there? Then it's going to give you instructions. You have everything that you need now. If you think that the point of AI and the point of ChatGPT is to make your emails sound better, girl! And please, for the love of God, do not leave this entire conversation to the tech bros. No shade on tech bros, a little bit of shade on tech bros, but it's like, this conversation is not meant to be had in a silo in Silicon effing Valley. Oh my God! Go get a ChatGPT account. Go get a Replit account. Start hacking. Start asking questions. Start building. Be fearless. Be curious. Be creative. Look, I would so much rather talk to somebody who is completely technically illiterate but is curious than somebody who touts the fact that they're, got X many years working in tech and blah, 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 used to work at Intel. Eat my shorts! Eat my shorts! Sometimes from people out there on the internet and that I'm operating in right now. And
we won't play it to the end. I'm going to leave you the link. I'm going to leave you the link. I'm as animated as she, at least, about your ability to get to the answer that you require to make things work. I don't want to hear about this crisis or that crisis. What we have is a knowledge crisis, right? If we have the right knowledge, then you can pursue. Every time I get bummed out, discouraged, 3 people watch my video, nobody read the newsletter, I'm going to keep that video to remember the sense of enthusiasm that this is an incredible time. This is incredible time. I don't know this person, but but I hear the enthusiasm, and there's a bright side, even though when it's like, oh, AI is just going to destroy the world. Nah. All right, everyone. Have a great rest of your day. If you have questions, email in the text below. Be sure to like and subscribe, and go find CatGPT. Ask CatGPT on TikTok. All right. Thanks.